So earlier today, I appeared on Steve Bannon's War Room to talk about what's going on with Israel and Iran. Now, I know a lot of you, every time we post a clip of me on Bannon's War Room, there's people who push back and say I shouldn't go on that show. Let me make it very clear. I've been a regular guest on Steve Bannon's show for a number of years. I am the only consistent pro-Israel voice from Israel that appears on that show, which means that if I don't go on that show, that audience is not hearing from anyone from our side. I consider it a great responsibility and even a privilege to go on there. And for all my disagreements with Steve, it's a relationship. It's a complicated relationship, but it's a relationship I've had for quite some time. And anyway, so there are reasons that I do go on that show. So I appreciate all the sentiment of people telling me that I shouldn't go on there, but I consider it a very important part of what I do. In any event, on the show today, Kurt Mills was on after me, and Steve asked me to stick around, and then he brought us on screen together. And there was an exchange that I'm going to show you where Kurt Mills made a claim about Israel being an expansionist country using taxpayer dollars, blah, blah, blah. You'll see it. And I want to talk about this exchange because I wasn't really given a lot of time to respond. And I want to share with you more of what we were actually talking about and what I would have said if I was given more time. So let's go right to the clip.
Powerful country in the region. They have nuclear weapons, hundreds of them, which they don't concede that they do. They can protect themselves. And the action here, the relevant action, is that only one country in the Middle East is seeking to expand with American taxpayer dollars, and that is Israel. It is not Iran. It is not the Gulf.
Rabbi Wolicki, your thoughts?
Israel is not seeking to expand at all.
Israel come on, that's what's going on in Lebanon.
Hang on. Rabbi Wolicki, what is going on in Lebanon? The Greater Israel Project. The Greater Israel Project is
a figment of your imagination. There's no such thing as the Greater Israel Project. Israel seeks to defend its borders, and every single citizen of Israel, it's unbelievable. The only country in the world that has ever surrendered land for peace multiple times is now getting accused of wanting to expand itself. Israel wants to secure its borders. If Hezbollah did not set up tunnels and rocket launchers and militias along our northern border and started shelling our northern communities relentlessly, Israel would never set foot in Lebanon. And the day that Hezbollah is removed from Lebanon, Israel will withdraw every single boot on the ground from Lebanon. No one in Israel has any desire to own any piece of Lebanon or any piece of Syria. Frankly, we tried to give the Gaza Strip back to Egypt when we returned the Sinai to them. They refused to take it. Look, Israel doesn't want to expand its borders. Israel wants to defend its borders. And unfortunately, when you have these militias that set up right on our border and start firing at our civilians, we need to go in and do something about it when the sovereign nation, Lebanon in this case, does nothing about it. There's no, this is just...
We'll get into this daily. Hang on. We're going to wrap up now.
Okay, so that's the clip. So that was Kurt Mills. So who's Kurt Mills? Kurt Mills is the editor of The American Conservative, which is a publication that was founded by Pat Buchanan, specifically to push back against neoconservatism. I'm going to take these off now. I wear them when I'm playing a video because it makes the sound better. Anyway, Mills is a regular presence on War Room, where, as I said, I'm the only consistent pro-Israel voice they ever bring in. And I want to be clear about something. Kurt Mills is not a fringe figure. He's not stupid. He represents a very real and growing faction in the America First movement, the anti-interventionist right or isolationist, whatever you want to call them. They call themselves foreign policy realists. But he's a very important figure in that movement. And that movement, that anti-interventionist part of the America First movement, is increasingly skeptical of U.S. support for Israel. This is a serious ideological position. It's held by serious people, and it deserves a serious response. So I'm not just here to belittle Kurt Mills. I also want to be honest. The exchange you just watched, I didn't really get to finish. Steve wrapped us up, as you saw, right when I was getting to the most important part. So that's why I decided to make this video. So let's start with the expansion charge, because this is where the whole thing really falls apart. Kurt says that Israel is the only country in the Middle East expanding its territory. And I pushed back immediately because the record on this is not ambiguous. Israel is the only country in modern history that has repeatedly given up territory it won in defensive wars in exchange for peace. right? I mean, think about this. The only reason that Israel ever expanded at all is because we were attacked. Had the Arabs accepted the UN partition plan in 1948, Israel would have been within the whatever the UN had allotted to it. They attacked us. We won territory. Same thing in 67, same thing. And then we always give back land, or not give back, we give away land in order to get peace. We gave away the Sinai to Egypt. We withdrew all the settlements from Gaza, every soldier, every settlement in 2005, every town. I'm not saying this that I agree with these decisions. I'm just saying, like, if you want to argue that the state of Israel is expansionist, it's kind of absurd. We withdrew unilaterally from Gaza in 2005. We didn't get anything in return. In fact, I tried to say something on the air that I want to flesh out here. When Israel gave the Sinai back to Egypt, like I just mentioned, we offered Egypt the Gaza Strip too, which was part of what we conquered from them in 1967. Egypt refused to take it back. They didn't want it. Here's the question I always want to ask people who make the expansionist argument about Israel. If Israel wanted to expand, why do we keep giving land away? The Sinai is enormous. It's nearly 3 times the size of Israel itself. And we gave it to Egypt. Lebanon in 2000, we withdrew because we thought it would bring us more security. Gaza in 2005, we withdrew. These are not the actions of a country with imperial ambitions. Now, is Israel currently occupying a piece of a strip in southern Lebanon and operating there? Yes. Is there a security zone in the south of Lebanon there? And we also have a piece of Syria as a buffer zone there right now? Yes. But here's the thing, and this is what I said on the air. If Hezbollah had not spent 15 years or more building tunnels, weapons depots, rocket launchers right along our northern border, firing them at civilians and Israeli soldiers, we would never have crossed the border into Lebanon. The moment Hezbollah is gone from southern Lebanon, Israel will withdraw because we have zero interest in owning any Lebanese territory. That's what I said on the show. But I want to address the phrase that Steve brought up there, the Greater Israel Project. Because when Kurt or Steve or any of these people, and they use this phrase, when they say the phrase Greater Israel Project, I mean, I genuinely don't know what he means as a pretty well-informed Israeli. I've never heard of it before. And I've said that on the air. I said it also, I think, in my previous appearance on Bannon. This came up then also. But let me explain. The phrase actually has a few different origins, and they're all being blurred together. There is a 1982 document that was written by an Israeli journalist named Oded Yinon, which became known as the Yinon Plan, that argued for Israeli regional dominance through the fragmentation of Arab states. It was never Israeli government policy. It was just this one guy's essay. But the anti-Zionist circles took hold of it and they turned it into something bigger. They turned it into like this secret plan by the Jews or by the Israelis, even though it was just like this one journalist writing down his idea. But it became the intellectual foundation for people who believe that Israel has this secret blueprint for regional conquest. And then there's the theological claims that are always weird, where people say that Jews think that the land of Israel is from the Nile to the Euphrates. I talked about this in an earlier video. The Nile to the Euphrates line is said to Abraham by God in Genesis, I think 14 or 15, somewhere up there. Okay? But here's the thing. The rest of the Bible, even like a few chapters later, does not treat from the Nile to the Euphrates as part of the promised land at all. I mean, it's obvious. When Moses is told by God, you are not allowed to enter the land of Israel, he was standing between the Nile and the Euphrates. He spent his whole life between the Nile and the Euphrates. When the nation of Israel leaves Egypt and they're in the Sinai Desert, are they already in the promised land? Of course not. You know, they send the spies in. They're still not in the land yet. Wait, but they're between the Nile and the Euphrates. No, the Bible does not treat from the Nile to the Euphrates as the promised land, as the land of Israel. So this whole claim that Jews think that from the Nile to the Euphrates is the land of Israel, and that's their agenda, it's based on that verse. Even the Bible doesn't treat it as the land of Israel. Okay, that's that. Okay, but that's not what Steve and Kurt Mills mean by the Greater Israel Project. Okay, when people say on shows like War Room, say Greater Israel Project, or when it gets mentioned in magazines like the American Conservative. Sorry. They mean that Israel's trying to expand its borders by taking Syria and Lebanon. And it's not based on any Israeli government policy. It's based on a conspiracy theory dressed up in the language of foreign policy. Now, the second major claim that Kurt made is about American taxpayer dollars, right? I actually think this is worth engaging seriously because there's a version of this argument that is legitimate and a version that's a smear. Here's the legitimate version. America gives Israel foreign aid. True. Americans are entitled to ask whether that's in their interest. That's a fair debate. That's a totally fair debate. Then there's the smear version, which is using the fact that America gives Israel foreign aid to imply that Israel's an imperial project being funded by unsuspecting Americans who are being manipulated into subsidizing this expansionist program. And that framing is not honest at all. Here's the reality. Israel is one of America's most reliable strategic partners in the most volatile region on earth. The intelligence cooperation, the technology transfer, the shared military development, the relationship, it pays the U.S. back in ways that are real and substantial. It's also true that the aid that Israel gets from the United States is a teeny tiny fraction, even of its defense budget. It's a very small fraction. It's like 10% or less than 10% of the defense budget, and that's before October 7th, where and our defense expenditure has skyrocketed since then, and we have all this income coming into the defense industry. It's a tiny percentage of the budget. Okay, this concept that America is bankrolling Israel is just absurd. The U.S. aid to Israel is, I think, something like 2 or 2.4% of our budget, of our national budget. It's like 0.5% of our GDP. The U.S. is not bankrolling Israel. And here's something else worth noting. Prime Minister Netanyahu has publicly stated that Israel needs to draw down the U.S. aid to zero. And I'm in that camp. I've written about that. And that's not because we're ungrateful. It's because Israel is economically capable of standing on its own 2 feet, and the aid has too often been used as leverage to constrain Israeli decision-making. Israel wants independence. We're not like bleeding America dry and sucking their money and using it for our imperial project. Okay, we don't even want the money anymore. All the aid to Israel has always come as a way of inducing Israel to make concessions on its own security. That's the history of it. I once made a video about this. I should probably do one again. So why does this exchange matter? Why did I share this to you? It wasn't just to promote my appearance on War Room. What happened on that show today is happening everywhere in conservative media and in conservative conversations right now. There's a realignment happening on the American right, and Israel is in the middle of it. And the Kurt Mills wing of conservatism, the America First anti-interventionist tradition that goes back to Pat Buchanan, is gaining a lot of ground. And they're going to keep showing up on shows like War Room and making these arguments. And when they do, they need to be answered clearly and calmly and with facts. Okay, we can't just shout them down or dismiss. We have to answer them. And that's what I try to do every time I'm on that show. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. Look, Kurt Mills is a smart guy. I think he believes what he's saying. I think there are real concerns that you could have as an American if you don't want your taxpayer dollars going to another country. I get that. And you could be concerned about mission creep in the Middle East and about, how decisions are made about where the U.S. gets involved militarily. These are all legitimate debates. It's fine. And the pro-Israel community also has to don't feel so threatened by these conversations. But the answer to any legitimate concerns like that is not to traffic in conspiracy theories about Israel having some secret imperial designs and wants to expand its territory and take land from, the expansive, Greater Israel Project. That's not the answer. It's not analysis. It's a conspiracy theory. Israel wants secure borders. Israel wants quiet neighbors that it can do business with. Israel has proven repeatedly and at great cost that it's willing to give up land if it could actually get peace. I don't think it ever does, but that's a different conversation. But if you're talking about Israeli public policy or the policy of the Israeli people, Saying that Israel is expansionist is ridiculous. I mean, every time we give up land, we end up getting rockets in return. So there's that, but that's not the topic here. Anyway, now you hear what I wish I had added if I had another 5 minutes to talk on War Room today. If you found this useful, please like and share and subscribe and all that stuff. And drop a comment. Let me know what you think. God bless.